This life is hard. You may say, oh, we all know that, Elise. It doesn't take long to figure that out. But it took me some time to find out how hard it could get. I'd had a wonderful life, you see. I was the eldest of 7 happy children. We grew up together during the Depression in a home brimming with love and stability. Father and Mother had to work hard to keep us all in food and shoes, but we lacked for nothing. I graduated Union Township High School in 1935, right next to James, who had been the love of my life from the day I first noticed him in 6th grade. He was the handsomest young man in our little Indiana town, tall and blond, and always with a twinkle in his eyes. We were young when we were married, just 19, but full of hope and courage, and so very much in love. Our son Jimmy was born just a year later in 1937, then Margaret in 40, and little Robert last in 42. We'd wanted 3, so we were all set, James used to say. What a father he was, always doing his share, even after a full day of work down at Cutter's, the hardware store in town. And he had his dreams. He was going to night school to be trained as an engineer, and his plan was to have a good, steady job by the time Robert was in school. But the war came, and James, being the man he was, he signed up. I didn't want him to go over. I was so afraid. I think I just knew somehow that he wouldn't ever come back home to me. And he didn't. The telegram said he was killed by a mortar shell during heavy fighting near a little town in Belgium called Verdun. I knew I would never marry again. No one could ever replace my James. And so I found out how hard life is. Found it out every morning when I woke up. Robbie and Margaret were too little to understand, really. But Jimmy, he knew what he'd lost, and he took it hard. I knew it, but I couldn't help him. I had all I could do to just keep going for the first few years. Father and Mother helped me a lot, and my sisters. When the kids were older, I found a good job at the bank, and somehow I managed to pay all the bills and save enough so by 1955 we could afford to buy a little house. Nothing fancy, but it was a sweet little place. James always used to admire it when we'd go into town for ice cream. And I live here still, of course, all by myself now. In 1955, Jimmy was 18 and more or less seemed happy, but I was worried about him. He got angry more often and he seemed restless. He didn't tell me much, but I could see he was having a tough time finding his future. And he was thinking about his dad. Jimmy was pretty much in love by then with the Barnes daughter, Elisa. She was a feisty little thing, and she knew how to keep him in line. They loved to dance together. Oh, they could argue better than any pair I knew. And then, when they were done fighting, they'd laugh and they'd dance. The kids were always playing the radio then. Why, Jimmy and Alyssa had it playing the day we moved into the house. I remember they got into some kind of a fight up in the attic. I could hear them talking. Then they were raising their voices. And then in the end, they had a laugh and a dance. And after that, everything seemed better. That's always been how it goes with those two.